In this video, we're going to be finding the midpoint between 2 points, and we're also going to find the other endpoint when you're given one endpoint and the midpoint. So let's first start by going over what the midpoint formula is. So the midpoint formula is your x1 plus your x2 divided by 2 and your y1 plus your y2 divided by 2. So it's that ordered pair. So let's look at our first example here. So we're going to find the midpoint of -5, -3, and 9, 3. Those are going to be our two endpoints. So here's our x1 and here is our x2. Here is our y1 and here is our y2. So let's go ahead and let's plug those into our formula. So we're going to have -5 plus 9 divided by 2, and then we're going to have -3 plus 3 divided by 2, and that's going to give us the location of our midpoint. So we can plug in -5 plus 9 divided by 2 into our calculator, and that's going to give us a value of 2. If we plug in -3 plus 3 divided by 2, that's going to give us a 0, because 0 divided by 2 is 0. And we have now found the midpoint of those 2 points, and we're finished. Well, what if you're not given the 2 endpoints? What if you're given one endpoint and the midpoint, and then asked to find the other endpoint? There's a couple different ways to do this. You can let's see, so let's start. So if we have an endpoint, this would be our x1 and this would be our y1, and then here we have our midpoint. So this is midpoint 1 or midpoint x, midpoint y. So this would be like our midpoint x, and that would be like our midpoint y. Okay? So if we were to use our equation, we would be able to put in that we know the -4 plus, but we're missing our x2, so we'll just put an x there, divided by 2, and we know that that is supposed to equal the midpoint of our x, right? The midpoint of our x value, which we know that that value is a 3. Then we would simply solve for x. So we would multiply both sides by 2, and that would give us a -4 plus x equals a 6. Then we would add 4 to both sides, and that would tell us that our missing value was a 10. So our other endpoint would be 10, something. To solve for our missing y value, we would set it up similarly. 7 plus, we don't know the other y value, divided by 2 should equal our my value, which in this case we know is 5. Then we'll solve for y. So we will multiply both sides by 2, giving us 7 plus y equals 10. Then we'll subtract 7 from both sides, and that will leave us with a y equals 3. And our other value would be 3 for our endpoint. So that's one way to do it. Now another way to do it is a little more visual. So I'm going to take my first endpoint, -4, 7, and then my midpoint, which is 3, 5, and I need to know this other endpoint. This is what we want right here. So I want to know, what do I need to do to get from a -4 to a 3? Well, I needed to add 7. So because this is the midpoint, if the distance between these 2 points right here is 7, then that means the distance between this point and this point also has to be 7. So 3 plus 7 is 10. You do the same thing for the y's. What do you need to do to get from a 7 to a 5? Well, you subtract 2. So you're going to do the same thing to get from 5 to the other endpoint. You'll subtract 2. and 5 minus 2 is 3. So notice that doing this gives us the same point. So either way is correct, and we'll find you your missing endpoint.